Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's so good to see so many of you here. Welcome to this forum sponsored by this wonderful group of organizations. Please give the organizations a round of applause. Now, President Ranglin has given me strict directions and orders, and Lisa and I are members of Ebenezer, so I know to follow Lisa's directions. So she told me that my job is to keep this forum going and to make certain we have a wonderful exchange of ideas. And we're going to make that happen with the cooperation of our candidates and with your participation also. So, without further ado, let me lay out what it is we're going to do here this evening. Now, there's a race coming up for Mayor of Providence. We all are aware of that. And there's a primary election among the Democratic candidates on September 9. And there are, I believe, 4 Democratic candidates here. And once we select a Democratic candidate, there's going to be a second election in November. Probably the second Tuesday in November, that would be my guess, between the Democratic candidate and the Republican candidate. Okay? Now, there may be an independent in there at some point, but we know where the Democratic and the Republican will be at. And so here's a chance. Here's a chance for us, for all of us, to engage these candidates in some important issues and matters. And as President Ranglin said, they developed, the group of people you saw here, developed the questions. And they gave it to the moderator. That's me. And they asked me to go through those questions with the candidates. So I'm going to do what President Ranglin told me to do. Okay? Now, she asked me to introduce the candidates and to let you all know a couple of ground rules. Okay? Number 1, we're going to have opening statements by the candidates. And each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an opening statement. Okay? Let me digress. I chair departments and I have to handle faculty members at Brown. So let me tell you, I'm good at handling smart people. So 2 minutes. 2 minutes, opening statements, okay? 1 minute for each candidate to respond to the questions that the group gave me to ask, okay? 2 minutes opening, 1 minute response for each candidate from the questions that we're going to ask. And then finally, each candidate will have 2 minutes. 2 minutes for closing statement. Okay? Pretty basic, simple ground rules. Now, as President Ranglin said, at some point we're going to open it up, and you all are going to give me some questions, and I'm going to read those also. Okay? Sounds exciting, doesn't it? Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Now, Diane Russell is holding a wonderful sign there that says 15 seconds on one side, and it says S-T-O-P on the other. Stop. Okay, so she's our timekeeper, and I'm going to rely on Ms. Russell to keep these candidates on time. Okay? Good. Thank you, President. So, let's get going with the opening statements. As I look out on this, I can't help but bring my professor stuff here. As I look out on this audience, I see democracy really trying to work itself. And I look out and see the diverse faces here. These candidates anticipating what you're going to ask them, because they're depending on you to ask good questions, for us to ask good questions, and for you all to make a good selection on September 9th and on the second Tuesday in November. Our first candidate is Lauren Adrian. He's here as a Democrat. Sitting next to him is Jorge Alonso. He's a Democrat. Daniel Hart, did I get it?
You got it.
He's a Republican candidate. Next to Mr. Hart is Brett Smiley. He's a Democratic candidate. And on the end, Michael Sullivan. He is a Democratic candidate also. Okay? Go ahead and get applause if you want to do it, that's fine. See, the more applause you do, the more time you eat into asking questions. Now, before you all before they came up here, President Raymond and I had these candidates select the order in which they were going to proceed. And we're going to proceed in the following fashion. Mr. Adrian is going to go first in opening statement, followed by Dan Hart, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Smiley, and then Mr. Horley follows up. Mr. Adrian, your opening statement, 2 minutes. And you might want to keep an eye on the beautiful woman there with the car, please, so you can keep the time. Okay.
Well, thank you, sir, very much, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, my fellow candidates, for being a part of this process. And, you know, to me, it's very, very exciting that we're all coming out and engaged in this conversation. And my hope and expectation is that the conversation that we have over the coming months is going to help us all, help our city come together and help us identify ways in which each of us can lead and serve each other. Now, our city is a small and interconnected one. It really seems to me that we're no more than 1 degree of separation from each other. It's a real strength of the city and a source of enormous potential for us all. For us all. Is that working? 15 seconds left? So our city is a small and interconnected one, and I really think that we're 1 degree of separation from each other, really. And to me, that's a real strength of the city and a source of enormous potential for us all. I have found that the best performing cities are cities where such networks are in place and enable and encourage people to work, play, and serve together. I feel confident that we each feel this potential, but to realize that potential, to make Providence a safer, better, more equitable city, we must continue to find ways to be more united. And I think that's why you're all here. More united in boosting our economy, more united in improving our schools, more united in making City Hall a more customer-friendly, better functioning partner in meeting the needs of people in all of our neighborhoods. As MLK would say, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. And so we must here in Providence. The cries of a child in Olneyville must be heard in Summit and Washington Park. A West End gunshot must outrage the residents of Benefit Street. The Southside child who's absent from school must become the mission of us all. The employment of the jobless in any of our neighborhoods must be the goal of all of our neighborhoods. We are our brother's keeper. Thank you.
Mr. Dan Hart, you have a second.
Well, I want to thank the organizers here tonight as well, and for everybody who's come. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to begin a real discussion of the difficulties we have and to begin to discuss solutions we need for this city. And the biggest problem, I think we all agree, is jobs and the miserable unemployment rate in this city. This election is about numbers, and it's about the lousy numbers that are now plaguing the city. We have $800 million deficit in our pension fund. We have a $1 billion deficit in our benefits fund. We have the highest commercial tax rate in the nation 2 years running. So when people say taxes are good, don't worry about raising taxes, think about the fact that every other major metropolitan area in this country gets by with lower tax rates. We have worsening crime. No less an authority than the Congressional Quarterly has found that crime has steadily gone up in this city in the past 4 years, such that we now have 358th most dangerous city. Okay? Listen carefully for solutions tonight as we talk about them. I'm the only candidate who's proposing to attempt to block through the mayor's office any tax raises at all. I'm the only candidate who's in favor of school choice as a way to help our budget.
Good. Thank you. Sullivan, you're next, sir.
I want to thank all the sponsors tonight, and I want to thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. You know, I love this city. I was born here. I was raised here. Went to school here. Raised my family here. Started my business here. Providence has been my home. I was born on Federal Hill. At the age of 4, I moved up to Elmhurst, where I continue to live today. But it was in Olneyville, my father's pharmacy, Anthony's Drugs, where I learned the importance of hard work and the role small businesses play in a community. From there, I opened up my own business, Wes's Rib House, and I continue to stay involved in the neighborhood. 3 years ago, I got elected council president the day the mayor took office. Immediately, we were faced with a $110 million structural deficit. There was no time for on-the-job training. We had to work together, and that was something that had never been done on the council before. We had to make tough decisions. Some of them were unpopular, but we made those decisions. And because of those tough decisions, today we had a $1.6 million year-end surplus. We still need to keep an eye on our finances, but we need to look to the future. We need to have a vision for the future. So when I announced for mayor, I made a commitment to invest $250 million into our schools. It's going to create jobs. It's going to improve the quality of our schools. And if we improve the quality of our schools, we're going to improve our neighborhoods. And that's what my campaign's about. Jobs, schools, and neighborhoods. Thank you.
Open statement, Mr. Smiley.
Good evening. I want to first thank the Rhode Island Black Business Association and the other organizations that worked to put this forum together. I want to thank Ebenezer Baptist Church and Reverend Baylock for hosting us today, and to Professor Orr for moderating. This is an important election, and there's a lot at stake. Mayor Taveras brought us back from the brink of bankruptcy and provided us with a window of opportunity to really transform Providence, and we need to take advantage of that window of opportunity. I've spent my career fighting for progressive causes. As the chief advocate for the Payday Lending Reform Coalition, I worked on behalf of the faith community and social justice activists to fight against predatory lenders and those who are taking advantage of our most vulnerable families. I managed the Vote Yes on 7 campaign that led to the successful approval of a $25 million affordable housing bond, and I'm proud to see that this money has already been put to good use in the construction of over 370 quality affordable homes. I've had the opportunity to work with the last 2 mayors and chair the Providence Water Supply Board. As mayor, I will work every day to turn our shared progressive values into practical solutions for the city we love. Because that's what we need more than anything. Someone with the values we can trust, the hands-on experience to know how to get things done, and a relentless work ethic. Since day one of this campaign, I've been outlining my vision for the city and substantive details on how to get it done. I've unveiled a comprehensive plan to make our streets safer. I authored a bill that was introduced on my behalf at the State House to create the first ever permanent funding stream for nonprofits doing anti-violence work in our neighborhoods. I've released plans to reform the PEDP and its loan granting program, and a forward-thinking idea to bring new money to our cash-strapped city, both of which are part of a full jobs and economic development plan that I will release later this week. My campaign has been about progressive ideas and concrete actions, and that the same will be true of my administration.
And now the open statement, Mr. Orza. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Marion. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and also thank you for the organizers to the organizers for putting this together. You know, this is very special for me today. I actually grew up on Cranston Street, just a few streets down, and I'd like to share with you a little bit about my story, because it said that we're all shaped by our experiences, and I'd like for all of you to hear not just what I'm saying, but more importantly, where I'm coming from. Because it's impossible to predict the kind of issues that we're going to be confronted with in the city. And I want you to know which perspective and what lens I'll be looking at issues from. My parents are immigrants who came to this country, and they came to this country with nothing, absolutely nothing. We lived on Cranston Street, just down the street, for 25 years in our second-floor apartment. My parents worked in the factories, humble, hard-working people. They were dedicated to their jobs, and that was my family's ticket out of poverty. But I know that those opportunities that brought so many families here to Providence no longer exist, and nothing else matters unless people have a quality job that they can use to climb the ladder to access the middle class. And so economic development and creating jobs is at the heart of what we care about in this campaign. While my parents were working in the factories, I went through the public schools. I went to schools, Asa Messer, Bridgham, Classical, right down the street. I almost didn't graduate from high school. I was on the verge of dropping out, and I got rejected from every university that I applied to. So I had to start off at CCRI, and I only got into college through a program called Talent Development at the University of Rhode Island. They gave me the shot. They opened the door for me. Had it not been for that program, I wouldn't have gotten into college. I went from almost not graduating from high school to graduating first in my class at the University of Rhode Island. And we're all shaped by our experiences, and I know that so many kids, they have the capacity to be great. It's our responsibility to open those opportunities for them, and I'm going to fight every day so that kids are given every opportunity to succeed in this way.
I'm going to read the first question, and we will begin, in this instance, with Mr. Adrian. I'm going to work my way down for the person to ask the first question. So the next first question would be you, Mr. Lorza. Okay, so we're going to start with you first, sir. I'll read the question. Over the past 25 years, the 10% goal for minority and women contractors and vendors has been largely ignored, with only a fraction of minority and women-owned businesses receiving city contracts. If you are elected mayor, to achieve equity, what would you do to ensure that minority and women-owned businesses are able to fully participate in the city's procurement process?
Well, I think it's very important to have a level playing field for everybody. And I think in any contract discussion, we have to have a common understanding of what are the requirements of the contract. So let's start with that. So any bid on the contract has to meet the terms of the contract. But my belief is that if we're going to live together as a community, then we have to work together as a community, and we have to be working hard every day to make sure that every group in the community has equal opportunity to work with City Hall and for City Hall.
So when I announced my candidacy, the first thing I said was, my name is Jorge Elorza, and I'm running for mayor for one reason. I want Providence to be a place where working families can succeed. And this 10% set-aside issue, this is an issue that I feel very passionately about. I've been speaking with women and minority-owned businesses throughout the city, and they tell me the issues that they face, first of all, are access to capital. Access to capital. The banks aren't lending, and it's difficult to pay your employees for 2 to 3 months while you're waiting to be reimbursed from the city. So I have a plan where we will create a revolving fund that minority and women contractors can tap into while they're waiting for the funds to be reimbursed from the city. In addition, we have to move to a quick pay system so that contractors can be paid very, very quickly. Also, it's about relationships that you have with City Hall. We have good laws in place, but there has to be someone there to police them. And also, women and minority-owned businesses, they need the technical expertise, and we have to provide that through the city.
I mean, we do have good laws that are supposedly on the books, but they're not enforced. And this is an excellent example of what happens when you have no minority party, essentially, in the state, and you have a one-party oligarchic system that simply gives jobs to its friends and ignores the laws and doesn't enforce the stuff that is on the books. Okay? First Source has been there for years and should have been enforced years ago with that type of thing. It's one of the reasons why I think I am running as a Republican to be mayor, to see to it that this type of old boy network ends at this particular time. We need to bring women and minorities in as enforcement officers at this particular time to see to it that these laws are enforced once they're passed.
Yes, thank you. And it's important, I think, I want to talk about both the minority business requirement, but also the women business enterprise. You know, we live in a minority-majority city, and women make up half of the population, and the fact that we can't hit our 10% goal is a real shame. We should be doing way better than 10%, and the fact that we can't hit that low bar is a serious disappointment, and we need real changes. The first and most important thing we can do is start to move as much of this information as possible online. I've talked a lot about how City Hall is still a place where you need to know a guy to get something done. And frankly, it remains a place where you need to know someone in order to get certified as an MBE or WBE contractor. We need to make this simple, that no matter who you know or who you're related to, you can get certified. And then the city has a real role to play in being a convener to making sure that there is no excuse of, oh, I didn't know a qualified minority contractor to partner with. There's plenty of talent out there, and the city needs to bring those people together through their WBE and MBE program.
I sit on the board of contracting supplies. Nothing bothers me more than opening up a contract and seeing zero minority participation, zero woman participation. That bothers me. That bothers me. We set a commission. There was a commission that took a study, and they came back with recommendations. And they presented those recommendations to the council, and we're working with some members that are in this room right now to make sure that we can put that legislation forward. We've taken contracts, we've put them online. So now, if you want to see a bid, it's online for you. We've connected with 26 other cities and towns to make that available. Could we do more? Absolutely, and we're going to do more, because that's our goal, to make sure that that when I open up those bids, I'm going to see at least 10%, and I'm going to see at least 10% for women too, and that's going to be my goal. Thank you.
All of you, it was proposed that the city of Providence develop a list of approved MDEs from which prime contractors can select a subcontractor. What policy or approach are you considering to enforce the inclusion of minority business enterprises as subcontractors, and how will you improve or review the 90-day payment policy of city contracts to small businesses?
Sure. So, we actually have a very good law on the books. It's a matter of policing it and making sure we have the right people in place to implement it. And it has to be a priority from the very top. And so, starting off our campaign, this has been a priority. It's going to be a priority through the campaign and also on into the administration. Making sure that we have the person in place that polices these contracts, making sure that all of the contractors, either the general contracts, the prime or the subcontractors, that they're holding up their end of the bargain each time. But it's also very important to expand the pool of businesses that qualify for this kind of work. It's impossible to get a loan for many businesses throughout the city. We can help on that score throughout the city. We can create a revolving fund so that small businesses can tap into and they can pay their employees while they're waiting to be reimbursed from the city. I've spoken to so many business owners, they say that's the greatest impediment. We have to deal with that directly.
Good. Do you want to expand on your plan to do more of this, Mr. Harper? What do you plan this question?
Yeah.
Subcontractors?
Yeah, well, I think Judge Laws has said that there's a very good law in the book. It's been there for many, many years, but it doesn't get enforced. It doesn't get enforced because, as Mr. Smiley just said, you need to know somebody to get something done in City Hall. So what you need to do is you need to break up City Hall. You need to get people in there who have not been involved and who are really dedicated to making these changes and to bringing in new faces, new people to look at these. It's a matter of enforcement. We're not enforcing things as they are now, and things have got to change, and that means the people have got to change.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Will you say matter, please?
So I think the key to better performance is going to be transparency and accountability. By putting these lists online, and frankly, by City Hall proactively reporting out how it's doing every year, as opposed to trying to hide the data because it's poor, but rather by reporting it out, we will hold ourselves more accountable. And that's my commitment as mayor. Additionally, this payment issue is a very real issue, and I've spoken to many minority contractors who flag this as a reason that it's not worth the effort to go through the certification process because of the horror stories about payment. I'm a small business owner myself. I have 4 employees and 1 office. It's businesses like mine that do, in fact, live month to month. My clients pay me monthly, and we struggle to make payroll every month. I recognize, and this is personal for me, understanding how hard it is to run a small business and how you need payments to come in so that you can meet your obligations to your employees.
solving the issue of subcontractors payments?
First of all, 90 days is unacceptable. I don't think any small business owner could sustain 90 days. I can't. I have to pay my bills in 30 days or less. I have to pay my employees weekly. So that's important. As far as the minority, the MBE, the WBE, it's important. It's important that we train for certification. It's important that we train our youth through building futures to get them prepared for the future, for jobs, for businesses, so they can participate in this process. We have the commission. We've been working to tighten up the laws on that, on the bidding process. And it's been tough. So there's a few loopholes right now that we're working on, and we'll continue to work on them to get them right. But we are working on it, and my commitment is that we'll get that done before the election, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that right now, and we're going to get that. Thank you.
Ms. Gabriel, I'll give you the last one of this question.
So I'd have to say I don't disagree with anything that's been said. The bottom line is really that there are good laws on the books. It is about monitoring. It is about measuring the performance of City Hall and putting a bright light on behavior and performance in City Hall. And if you're doing that and you're making that the process within the City Hall transparent and showing people how it's performing, behavior changes. That's just the way human nature is. On the other hand, if everything is hidden and behind the cloaks and you have to know a guy to get a guy and all this sort of stuff, then things continue as they are. So shine a bright light. All of us ought to be looking at the data and looking at performance and holding City Hall accountable.